herself,
Nandi Jola.
and Elana, playwright, facilitator, author, mentor, poet, highly praised in Northern Ireland and internationally.
Yeah, in Northern Ireland, when I say I'm South African, I feel like I've won the Rugby World Cup. Like,
That's it. They didn't get that. So you pretty much had to unlearn every
the
single
biases,
thing
exactly,
that you had already learned to be true.
Exactly.
And that can be hard as well.
Exactly, especially when you're
it.
coming to a white majority country. When my daughter came to me and she had a big afro and she says, everybody touches me every time, touches my hair every day. And I was horrified for her. So, hair. Not a day goes by without someone touching me. I am black. Black as Angela Davis. Black as slavery. Like apartheid. History, struggle, black. I thought because I grew up, with apartheid and I didn't know anything else. So, for example, I didn't know what traveling felt like. Nobody in my family has ever traveled. Nobody has ever owned a passport. Nobody has ever had a, higher education, a degree. So I learned that we as black people, as much as we are a majority and it's our country, we were so oppressed. Because when you live inside a system that you are oppressed to and you are among the people that you are oppressed with, you kind of normalize it.
Well, you mentioned hope a lot. You dance and you sing while telling your story. That would cause most to shatter. Like, let's be honest. What keeps you going in the hardest times throughout your journey?
Spiritually, it's a big significance in what I do.
I
said to do this all day.
Wait, be here all day. Hello, everyone. It's Elana, and we are live here with Nandi Jola. So, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. How does it feel to be here today to share your story?
I'm just excited to see behind the scenes as well.
Okay. Thank you so much for making the time. For some background, for our audience, Nandi Jola, who was born in Obeha, and she has spent most of her life in Northern Ireland. She is a playwright, facilitator, author, mentor, poet, and she is known to be highly praised in Northern Ireland and internationally. And as we know, you are super busy working on a script right now. So I saw that you are going to release some more information about this play in December. So can you tell us the name of your play and what inspired this project?
The play is called Mamchawe, The Rise of Magoma. And the reason for that is because we are Xhosa tribe and Xhosa language is important in the colonial legacy telling of the story. So that's what inspired the play. It's the truth. It's uncovering the truth and also bringing the people whose objects are in museums to the objects. So I finished my master's here at Queen's in poetry, and during my research I wrote a dissertation called Diversity Will Not Erase History, looking back then at the colonial legacy in Ireland, England, and the ties that had with South Africa. So that inspired me to get an Arts Council funding, to take a gap year this year to go to South Africa and do some more research. And whilst I was doing that, I met a fifth generation of this family, which I'm writing a play about. And upon doing that research about their great-great-great-grandfather, I came across a very important piece of information that the family didn't have, that his stick was brought to Ireland in 1880. So I went to the museum, I located the stick, I found it, touched it, and sent them a photograph, a video, and they were so emotional. And I thought, I couldn't leave it at that.
Ooh.
So I wrote a play and I convinced the museum for the play to be in the museum and for the stick to be there.
I just really think that's super beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to begin. So let's just start with the poetry jukebox. And that is beautiful. So the last few months, everyone has been talking about Black History Month, and I wanted to make sure to highlight some of your interesting and latest exciting news. So you made a post in the caption that was when you and your daughter appear on the first ever jukebox dedication to the writers on the island of Ireland. So first off, congratulations. And as a poet, that's really inspiring. So what were your first thoughts and reactions when you saw this?
Wow. So the jukebox, again, it's like, what would I want to do with the learning that I got from the masters in poetry?
Okay.
And I thought community, bringing people knowledge and art in public space, in spaces that where Black people would never have been to. So the jukebox, I had to think of a name, and I came with the golden shovel, which is a technique used by Terence Hayes after Gwendolyn Brooks's poem "We're Real Cool." And after then I looked at that, I said, the poems in the jukebox, all of them, all 20, have to pay homage to a Black writer or Black activist.
Ooh.
So taking a line from a poem from any Black activist or a quote of a Black poet, then using that to inspire a poem. So that was the first
Yes.
thing. And the location of the jukebox, during Black History Month was the City Hall of Belfast, which is identical to the City Hall in South Africa. So looking at these two buildings, why they were identical, and it's the same architecture, again, going through the colonial legacy, and realized that Frederick Douglass spoke in City Hall in 1875
In Northern Ireland.
in Northern Ireland. So all these connections
Okay.
connected the Blackness of this city. And what people didn't realize is that Ireland and Northern Ireland, but Ireland in particular, there have been Black people here since 1773.
So that's amazing. And it's crazy. That's so beautiful to just connect that and make these specific connections, especially when it comes to Black history here. And we did some interviews going over culture and identity within the Black community in Northern Ireland. So I've been learning a lot about that. So another interesting thing is when you arrived in Northern Ireland, you were 21 years old. And you mentioned not knowing about the country before getting this opportunity. And it was almost the same exact story that I had with Belfast. So you did an interview with the Belonging Project, and you mentioned that you learned more about South Africa when you got to Northern Ireland. And what would you say is the biggest thing that you learned about South Africa when you came here?
Oh, I thought, because I grew up, with apartheid, and I didn't know anything else. So, for example, I didn't know what traveling felt like. Nobody in my family has ever traveled. Nobody has ever owned a passport. Nobody has ever had a, higher education, a degree. So I learned that we as Black people, as much as we are a majority and it's our country, we were so oppressed. Because when you live inside a system that you are oppressed to, and you are among the people that you are oppressed with, you kind of normalize it. And
That's so
therefore, when I came here, it was kind of like, when you're unpacking a suitcase, and then you realize that, what you're going to put, So my life was like, what am I going to put in place for me to have the best experience?
Ooh,
So every
deep.
day walking without having to cross, signs that said blacks only, whites only. There's no such here. So I had to learn how to utilize spaces, how these spaces were free, how the spaces
So you pretty much had to
unlearn
unlearn every
the
single
biases.
thing
Exactly.
that you had already
Yeah.
learned to be true. And that can be
Exactly.
hard as well.
Exactly,
And
especially when
doing
you're
it.
coming to a white majority country where you've been oppressed by white people behind, and being now, sometimes a token.
Okay.
So you had to learn the genuine people
Can you
to.
unpack that a little bit? You said almost like a
Yes.
token. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean by that?
So you have to identify the people that are genuinely interested in you,
Okay.
in the spaces that you're in. I mean, the art spaces. So therefore, you are not a new thing. You are not the craze. You are not, this just a
Another
color.
option, exactly.
Exactly. You are a producer. You are a writer. So how does that, avail itself then in terms of opportunities? Do you get the same opportunities, or are you always classed as an ethnic minority, a newcomer? So you have these new labels that are put on you because you want, they want to put you in boxes.
And what was that process like for you? Like, what were your thoughts going through this process
Oh, the thought
and
process.
navigating the spaces?
Yeah, it's navigating and knowing authentically who you are so that you can identify when you're being a token. So
That's
it's,
so deep.
yeah, so that came
That's a
with
good
learning.
info.
So when I came from South Africa, I came here, I did a degree in arts here, and then I did my master's in poetry. So it comes with the learning, a lot of reading. It comes with a lot of reading.
Yes, and
reading,
not knowing
yeah,
about it beforehand too.
exactly.
Being a culture ambassador and working in schools throughout Northern Ireland, can you share work that you do around culture, the changes that you have seen over the years?
Yeah, so before I got into that, what got me into that is I realized I was getting asked questions that were, I didn't want to say stupid, but they were naive.
Okay.
So people would ask me, do you have any McDonald's in Africa? Or, because these are children. Or they would ask me, how far is South Africa to Nigeria?
Okay.
And then I realized that people thought that Africa was a country. And therefore, I had to put a plan or a program together. So I designed the program, Cultural Awareness, and I delivered it in schools
Wow.
with some organizations. So it has like a quiz, like 6 questions of the quiz, fun to interact with the children. And then it's the pictures. And then I ask about the time zones. I ask about the distance. How long do you think on the plane it'll get you to, take you to get to Africa? And also, what would be the first thing you want when you get there? So it'll be like a McDonald's. I said, exactly. We all go to McDonald's. So, things like that. So it's
Okay.
interactive for children. So, but it's learning as well. So I asked them to name the big 5, which are the 5 famous animals you only get in Africa.
Wow.
Yeah. So do you know the big 5?
I can guess.
Go on.
So, probably giraffe, elephant, and I'm not sure about the other 3.
So it's the elephant, it's the rhino, it's the lion, it's the leopard, and it's now I'm forgetting the 5th one. But we have what we call the big 5, and they are the only animals you can get together in Africa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, while we're talking about South Africa, can you share with us some of your favorite things about South Africa that you missed the most when coming here?
Oh, we have a lot now of South African goods, right? We've got South African shops online, but about 20 years ago, there was not many. And I used to miss my orange juice, the taste of orange juice from home. And I used to miss things like that. But now I'm getting used to it. But we had the Rugby World Cup, which was played here in France, and South Africa having won the World Cup back to back, right? And I wished that I was at home. I just wished that I was soaking up that environment at home, because the Football World Cup was there in 2010. I missed that. And we had Miss Universe, who was a South African.
Wow.
I missed that. So I feel like I'm losing a lot of momentum moving forward. But also, it's also great to know that here in Northern Ireland, when I say I'm South African, I feel like I've won the Rugby World Cup. Like, you feel so
Yes.
proud that you are known that you are a nation of achievers,
Yes, one of my
Yeah.
friends, we were having a birthday dinner for her. She's South African, and the world, and they were doing the rugby. So she was like trying to eat, and she was like, I don't know if anyone's going back with me, but I need to go. And she kept watching her phone, and that's just a part of who she is. So it's true, and it can be difficult as well. That transition. And how did you kind of cope with that? I know later on I talk about just about your journey and how you asked for, your grandma to, come here. But in that, just leaving home and feeling, how did you manage to stay connected back at home and also be here and be okay with that?
Very difficult at times because my daughter is born here. And therefore, the title of this home way is home. So we had a conversation one time in the car, and I think she was only about 6 or 7. And I said, I miss home. She goes, we just left home. And I realized we're not talking about the same home. I said, home. And so she goes, yeah, we're just like left home. I'm like, I'm talking about home. So this whole identity, belonging, borders, where is home, all of that, over time, it kind of gets sad and happy at the same time. So you would have these moments where you realize that, motherhood was something that I experienced here. But I experienced it on my own.
That's so deep.
I've never been a mother, and I didn't know what to do when you're a mother, and therefore having to learn that, and then it transforms into now you have a friend here forever, like a best friend. So those are the things that make things easy. But then I lose that home feeling when I get home because I realize that I don't belong to this place anymore.
That's so deep. That's so deep. Wow. So one thing that you for sure did not leave behind is your mother tongue, Osa. And what does it mean for you to use your mother tongue in your work? Because it's powerful. And in my feminist rhetoric class, we read I Give You Back. And it's about how using the colonizer's language, so English, or it's actually power that can be used in a way that we express oppression and many other things. So that can be seen as a bad thing. So what does it mean for you to be able to use these different languages within your work?
Okay, so I recently got a commission from Ulster Museum to respond to an exhibition they have on South Africa, which was between 1899 to 1902. And I was able to identify what was missing in that exhibition, and it was the story of the black people. It's whitewashed history, so having that language for me helps, the legacy to be told from our perspective. So I'm forever now going into museums and saying, that's not how you spell that name. The stick that I found, it's misspelled. So instead of saying Maqoma, they say Motomo, meaning that the people who brought objects here didn't know how to spell the names, didn't know how to pronounce the names, and therefore they just put their own English version of the names.
Wow.
So my work now is to undoing what has been done, the injustice that has been done via colonization. So it's not just colonizing the objects or the people, it's also trying to change people's language to suit the narrative.
Wow. That's this is so good. Wow. And it said, so going on to more about in your poetry, because that's where we see, your language, and that's where you express. I love how you will dance to show just different culture and how that can bring life to different spaces and different areas, and that's just a part of who you are. And the TED Talk, Poetry Saves Lives, the body is the battle of our consciousness. You mentioned some challenges and opportunities while being a migrant in Northern Ireland and being here and walking in your purpose, your calling, but missing home all at the same time. So in there you said the journey somehow becomes joyous, at times heavy, but most times a necessity. And then again in your poem called The Journey, Reclaim the Night, are a few things that stood out to me that you said. You said, I was wondering if it was something special to me, if it was something spiritual. And I told my grandma that you said as well, I told my grandma that I had to go find what will keep me alive. What I was searching for is knowledge, but I have hope. And so you mentioned hope a lot. You dance and you sing while telling your story. That would cause most to shatter. Like, let's be honest. So, what brought you hope in those times, and what keeps you going in the hardest times throughout your journey?
It's my grandmother's voice.
Mm-hmm.
Was my grandmother passed when I was 9. So in all the things that I'm talking about my grandmother as if she is alive, in the journey when I said I had to go to her, my grandmother died when I was 9. I came here when I was 21.
Wow.
So going to her was going to a different realm to her, to ask for permission. So I always felt like she's always been with me in the journey. She's now here with me here. So having that focus that there's somebody with me in this journey, spiritually, it's a big significance in what I do.
Mm-hmm. That's deep. So, thank you so much for being here today. And we're just so excited. We learned so much. Yes. So, I don't even. Oh, yes. And to end off, can we hear some of your work, your beautiful work? We cannot forget that.
Yeah, let me just
And
read.
just tell us what book of poetry you're reading in and poem name.
Yeah, so I'm going to read from Home is Neither Here Nor There, which was published by Adoya Press, which is an Irish press. Very grateful to them. I think I looked at your hair and I thought, wow, I love hair, African hair. And we were having this conversation about, natural hair, and we know the difficulties of hair. So I wrote this poem. My daughter came to me and she had a big afro, and she says, everybody touches me every time, touches my hair every day. I just hate this hair. And I was horrified for her. So, hair. Not a day goes by without someone touching me. My hair is my body, more hands in my hair. I am not tan, dark-skinned, colored. I am black, black as Angela Davis, black as slavery, like apartheid, history, struggle, black, my hair, my flag, my roots, my decolonization, my confidence. But you would rather I cover it up, straighten it, curl it, put a wig over it, weave it. No, it demands to be seen. It commands to be seen. It is iconic, symbolic. It is me. It's my hair.